Donate your car today to Junk for Joy.
Hooray!
Donate your car today to Junk for Joy.
Donate today at junkforjoy.org and your car can be picked up by tomorrow.
Your turn it on, leave it on. Home of America's team is 105.3 The Fan.
Hello, baby.
KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas Fort Worth.
Always live on the free Odyssey app.
This year's NFL Draft is April 27th through the 29th, live from Kansas City, and no one will cover it better than 105.3 The Fan and DallasCowboys.com. Here with an early look at that 3-day football party and special edition of our Love of the Star podcast are two of our draft experts, G-Bag Nation's Brian Broaddus, and from the Sean and RJ Morning Show, Bobby Belt.
Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast live on terrestrial radio here on 105.3 The Fan.
How about that?
Isn't this special?
What did we do to deserve this one? Did we just did they feel like we were like having a little bit of a good run right now on this thing? And hey, let's throw on Sunday, see how it sounds.
Yeah, I think that's partially it. I think also it was probably something related to I've been getting a little mouthy on the air recently.
Oh,
and
have you?
Yeah, and they were like, let's throw him on Sunday. Let's have him pick up a Sunday shift and see how mouthy he wants to get after that.
But so you did that by doing this, though. You brought me into the picture too.
Exactly. Yeah. We're tied together. That was the hope. Is that I think they were hoping that through this process you would then be so angry at me that you would take it out on me physically. And actually, we're really excited to jump on with you guys here. And this will be simulcast as our podcast this week, the Love of the Star podcast. So you guys, when you're listening to this on Monday or Thursday, depending on which show you're listening to, you guys will be hearing this. This is something that we're recording live here on Saturday on 105.3 The Fan, and also on the Twitch stream and the YouTube. You guys can send us texts today for this draft coverage. 877-881-1053, 877-881-1053. I just feel wrong not going through the normal Love of the Star intro, though, so I got to do that really quick.
Yeah.
I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105.3 The Fan. Joined, as always, by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105.3 The Fan. That is your radio flagship home with the Dallas Cowboys. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host of the Dallas Cowboys radio network, and he is the godfather of the draft show on DallasCowboys.com.
And I have to do it back towards you because you do. So, yes, that's the voice of Bobby Belt, who is on the Sean and RJ and Bobby show, 5:30 to 10 every day, Monday through Friday there. Bobby also is the Cowboys insider for 105.3 The Fan. He also is the host for this for these podcasts that we do. And he's also a member of the draft show. So as you can see, Bobby and I do a lot of things around here, and but super excited beyond doing this, Bobby. Super excited though for the folks. And I just want to say real quick before we get in, I mean, we got a 2-hour show today.
Yep.
And so I just want to say thank you to all the folks, guys and gals, all you that listen to the Love of the Star. When Bobby and I started the Love of the Star, with the Odyssey and, everything like that with our station, they were all saying, hey, the various teams are going to have these podcasts and stuff, and really some really neat creative names for these podcasts. And we got the Love of the Star. But the fact that you folks out there listen religiously to these podcasts that we do, really, really appreciate it and can't thank you guys enough. And so, like I said, I'm super excited that we get to do a little live radio today and kind of bring a little bit more of a flavor of what we do with the Love of the Star here today. Absolutely.
And the biggest question right now, Brian, is related to what the Cowboys are going to do at 26. We're getting, awfully close here to draft day. We're about 10 days out now at this point, 10, 11 days.
Yep. I'm saying but I know it's on a Thursday. It's
somewhere rather. Yeah. As we approach this day, as you assess what the Cowboys are looking at, what they're going to do right now, if I said, Brian Broaddus, you get your pick. You get to say somebody that you generally think will be there. Obviously, Will Anderson would be great to have here, or a Peter Skoronski or somebody like that. Yeah. But if I were to say somebody who you think could be in the range at 26, who is the perfect player to Cowboys match that you would put on the Dallas Cowboys?
This is the closest. Usually I feel like I have a really good handle on who they're going to take. I remember, Leighton Vander Esch, I kind of had that vibe. 30 visits were going on.
Tristan Hill. You had that vibe that things were going on. I'm not sure. And I keep telling people that ask me on Twitter, they're like, well, hey, who do you take? I think I can narrow it down to the positions, and I think on the Love of the Star podcast, you and I had this discussion. If we could figure out who the number one guard is on their board, yep,
I think that will help us a lot. I think if we could figure out who their number one tight end is on their board, I think that will help us a lot. I think the wild card positions are what happens at running back. If the Bijan Robinson from Texas makes that slide, if you're a Bijan Robinson fan, you're going to have to walk a minefield to get him to 26. So I think realistically, you're looking at either a tight end or one of these guards. And, I got in a discussion on Twitter with some folks yesterday about who the best tight ends were. Who do you have, Mayer or is it Kincaid? And I know I'm seeing a lot of love for Washington.
Yeah,
so I wonder, and he's the tight end from Georgia. And I wonder if the love for Washington is because people are feeling like that the Cowboys need a tight end, but Mayer and Kincaid are gone. And Dallas is going to go ahead and take maybe the third best tight end in the draft.
It's funny, you mentioning that there, that, Darnell Washington has started to get a lot of love. The offensive tackle in reality from Georgia, I think, Brian. He plays tight end, but that man's going to be a Jason Peters tackle conversion, I'm convinced.
I thought, when you say that, and when I was watching him on tape, I was thinking this will be I saw Jason Peters play tight end at Arkansas. And then when they moved him to tackle, I'm like, man, what a brilliant move that was.
He did not look like even when you watch his Arkansas tape, you go, that guy was playing tight end?
No. So I'm just, this very well could be like you're saying, the conversion. But I know watching Stetson Bennett, you get down to the point where I was watching some of these quarterbacks, these late quarterbacks, and then you're watching Washington play, and every pass in the red zone seems to go his direction. It seemed like it was a touchdown every time they threw him the ball. I'm going, man, this guy does have some ability down there.
When you look at bookies.com, our friend Pat Doney at NBC5 had tweeted out
bookies.com
last night from bookies.com tweeted out the odds.
I'd like to work for bookies.com.
Your son eventually wants to work for bookies.com, right?
Yeah, you're gonna graduate from Texas in 3 years and go be a bookmaker is what he's gonna do.
So at bookies.com, we have the top 4 odds for the Cowboys pick at 26. So I'm going to go 4-1. So we'll go the fourth best odds.
Fourth to the first. Okay.
Fourth best odds at plus 550, Texas running back Bijan Robinson.
There you go.
And I know you have been a big fan of his. I'm obviously a big fan. Everybody always gives me crap because I'm a Longhorns faithful.
Sure.
And it's probably the same crap you get for the LSU love.
Yeah.
Although I didn't actually go to the school. I'm a T-shirt Texas fan. But when you look at Bijan Robinson, what do you see?
Tell you what, Bobby, this was one of those. I started on this journey with these players the 1st of December. December 1, had a list. Dane Brugler provided me a list. I said, hey, I need 100 players. Give me 100 guys to start with. And Bijan Robinson was the 3rd or 4th guy that I looked at on, that week of December 1st. And then as we have gone through this journey, and I'm well over 200 players now. I got one more week of doing this. No, I usually stop at 190, and I just kept going and going and going.
Couldn't stop yourself.
So I'll get this thing, and I'll put my board out there. I'll put all my guys. I'll stack them for you. You'll see what I've got. I'm not gonna run away from this.
Sure.
Bijan Robinson's the 3rd best player on my board, and I just don't know.
Is he only 3rd best because of the position? If you just stripped away position, would you think he's naturally the best?
I think Carter and Young. I think Carter at Georgia. I think he for all the
Jalen Carter, defensive tackle, Georgia.
All the things that he's going through right now. You know what? I was on a show the other day, and they were asking me about Carter, and they said, if you're in the top 10, what would you do? And I said the first thing I'd do is I would send my security reps down to Athens, Georgia. I'd hire a private investigator. I would follow him for a week. I would do everything I can to learn as much as I can about the player because I'm about to spend, millions and millions of dollars on this player. And I want to know if he's there, can I draft him? We did the same thing with Randy Moss when I was in Philadelphia. Jeff Lurie, the owner there, he was super cool about that. I'm like, Mr. Early, we're going to need about $25,000 for private investigators. And he goes, really?
I wish I would have known you back in the day.
No,
my grandfather worked in the sheriff's office there in West Virginia.
Yeah,
said Randy used to come in all the time.
But we did a lot of work on Randy. We did a lot of work on Trey Thomas. We picked, but I think that's what I was doing. But Carter, to me, when you watch he could be a dominant player, and I love Bryce Young. I think that Bryce Young at Alabama, the quarterback, would be my second guy. And this is hard for me because I come from an era where these short quarterbacks, but you got to give this guy his due. You got to give, he is such a calm player, and he's played in so many huge games. He played in a pro system with Bill O'Brien there. We've seen shorter quarterbacks have some success. I mean, Baker Mayfield, maybe not so much, but we've seen guys have success in the league, even with the mobility and ways to play. So, and then Bijan Robinson. I made the early statement. I've seen traits. I was with the Packers when we played against Barry Sanders.
Yep.
I've seen Barry Sanders traits with Bijan Robinson when it comes to carrying the ball.
Yeah, I think where you see because I know Sean Sharif, our teammate here at 105 Through the Fan.
Did he watch tape? I think
when he watches, he'll watch the Bijan highlights.
Yeah.
And what he says is he's like, when you guys say Barry Sanders, I expect to see the shiftiness. It's like, I think where you see Barry Sanders is that contact bounce, that ability to wiggle through the hole, the ability. I mean, there are times where when you see what's blocked up for him, he has no business getting 9-10 yards like he does.
None.
Where you're like, anybody else getting that's getting 2, but he's just he identifies the opening so quickly and is able to cut and hit it and maintain his balance. Yeah. It's just he's a really special player.
Well, that's the thing, and the ability to finish from anywhere on the field. And the same way, Barry,
complete running back.
Barry Sanders was I could tell you games we played against him in Green Bay, and he was gain of 2, gain of 5, gain of 2, -3. 83 yards.
Yeah.
That's how the runs went for him.
And that 83 yards was one where you felt like he should have been -4.
Exactly. So, it's not me. I just love the player. I love I'll tell you, I love Gibbs. I love Gibbs from Alabama too. Give me these guys in this day and age that can run, make people miss, block when they have to, and catch the football and be a weapon that way. You got 2 backs that can do that in this draft that way.
Third best odds at +500. Denton Ryan product, Drew Sanders, Arkansas linebacker, which actually here on the YouTube chat, I see here, Ultra Cowboy says Drew Sanders will be the pick at 26. Can't go into the season with 2 starting linebackers with neck issues. He thinks that Drew Sanders is the perfect Dan Quinn weapon. And Brian, I know that you've not been as big a fan of Drew Sanders. I think you think he's a good player, but you still have some questions there.
I do. Actually, I have Drew Sanders in the second round. I have him on my stack. He's player number 28.
Which
it's right in the range.
When you're picking 26, you're likely picking a second-round player.
Right, exactly. I've got 20 first-round grades. Johnston, the wide receiver from TCU, is my last player in the first round. So if you said, Brian, give me your first player, it's Carter from Georgia. Give me your last player. It's Johnston.
And how many first-round grades is it?
20.
20. And last year, I think you only had like 13, 14.
I had 15 last year.
It was a thin year last year.
Yeah. So, but that's where we're at right now. And I understand, from the fan there about Sanders. I get it. The one thing that you see with Sanders is you do see pass rush ability there. You see it. I mean, everyone was like going, well. I know one thing when I watched Micah Parsons tape, I did not see Micah. I saw Micah Parsons as a blitzer, but I didn't see, hey, put Micah Parsons on the edge. In Drew Sanders, you see that.
Yeah.
This is a draft where there's some of those linebackers where you actually see that pass rush ability there.
Is he would you think comp-wise, similarities to the player that Van Der Esch was coming out, only with a little bit better pass rush ability?
Yeah, I felt like that Van Der Esch was the biggest difference to me was the pass rush ability. That's why
Sanders is a better pass rusher. I think Van Der Esch was better in coverage coming out.
Van Der Esch was really good in coverage, and Van Der Esch was really good at when it came to playing like downhill. And Drew Sanders has got some downhill. And when I mean downhill, it's like filling the gaps, bouncing to the outside, not being blocked and all that. Van Der Esch played very well on the move at Boise. Sanders is similar to that.
See, that's the thing. And you remember one of the criticisms about Van Der Esch coming out was his ability to disengage, get off blocks, that people felt like he didn't do that. I feel like Sanders does a better job of that. But the thing with Sanders is I feel like he's just not going to let you get your hands on you as easily.
Right.
Is the thing, is that he's just going to dip blocks. The two best odds, Brian, both tight ends, Darnell Washington, who we just mentioned, Georgia tight end at plus 450, and then at plus 425, Dalton Kincaid, Utah tight end. Like you said, if we can figure out these tight ends, if we can figure out these guards, which interesting that there's not a guard in this top four. Vegas might be missing something there. But if you can figure out the top tight ends, you might have a good feel as to what they're going to do. And I think there's a pretty decent chance Dalton Kincaid would be their top tight end.
Yeah, there's people that will, have discussions with me on Twitter once again, and I enjoy the back and forth. I don't have a problem with that at all. Mayer is from Notre Dame is number 18 on my board. Kincaid is number 22 on my board. Washington is 37 on my board. So, to me, if you the two top ones would be Mayer and Kincaid.
I have Washington in the 4th round.
Do you really?
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah.
He's a tackle to me.
Yeah.
I recognize.
I think I got to not think. I know I have 37 just because I will tell you this though, Bobby, he is not as clean of a blocker that you would think at a man that's 6'7", 260.
I also think he tested like a better athlete than his tape looked like.
Yeah.
And I mean, for his size, I mean, what is he, 6'7", 264. He ran 4.64.
Yeah.
The broad jump was 10. He had 21 bench reps with 34.5-inch arms.
The 20-yard shuttle, which is lateral.
4.08.
Yeah, that's like when you start getting.
But he doesn't look like that on tape.
It's amazing, though. It really, really is. I like I said, I was super, super impressed by him. In that red zone area, though, that's where I thought he could really, really cause some problems. And he works the middle of the field, I think, pretty well. They've got a tight end at Georgia, though, that is that will be probably a top 10 pick next year. The Bowers, Bowers will probably be a top 10 pick. He'll be
Brock Bowers. Yeah,
Brock Bowers will be a top 10 pick next year.
You are listening to us here on the Love of the Star live here on 105.3 The Fan, or you may be listening to us on the Love of the Star podcast. But we're recording this live here on Sunday, April 16th, talking about draft. Let's figure out these tight ends, and more specifically these guards. As Brian has said, if we can figure out these guards and these tight ends, you've probably got a good beat on who the Cowboys will take at 26. We'll do that next year on 105.3 The Fan.
Hey, thanks to Rockwell Ford, it's 35 minutes of commercial-free Fan and the Expressway. Sean and RJ mornings at 7:20, KNC middays at 12:20, and afternoons with G-Bag at 5:20. Right here on 105.3 The Fan and the Odyssey app.
This is the How Do They Live Like That podcast, sponsored by Champion Energy. Our guests today are Mr. and Mrs. Holdover, who refuse to live in the 21st century.
Hi.
Hi.
Are we live yet?
No, this is a podcast. So why are you two so stuck in your ways? Like, why not switch to Champion Energy for low rates and great service?
Sounds like a hassle.
Yeah.
What if your listeners changed to a different radio station?
Ooh.
Again, this is a podcast.
Dave saw me dancing with my Kelly Kapowski shirt during the break there. So we appreciate Carter very much as well.
And also, too, shout out to our friends, our guys and gals overseas.
Yes, the UK Cowboys fans are big
Saudi
listeners.
Arabia listeners,
yeah.
Prince Faisal listening overseas. So a lot of loyal Cowboy fans, and we love every one of you. We really, really do.
So we're going to talk about tight ends and guards here. We just talked a little bit about Michael Mayer, Darnell Washington, Dalton Kincaid. Let's talk about Luke Musgrave really quickly before we dive into these guards.
Let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
When you say Luke Musgrave, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're hearing something, aren't you?
Every
once in a while, I have to pin you down on that you hearing something.
I think that when you come out of Indy, I think there's a greater sense around the league. For most people,
he's a really good player.
I feel like the trendy pick right now is to have Musgrave as the fourth tight end. I don't think you have him as the fourth.
I have him as the 31st best player on my board.
I think that the trendy thing here is definite second round player, fourth tight end. I think there's a lot of people who have Darnell Washington ahead of him now, Mayer, Kincaid. Musgrave's the best tight end I've watched. And I think that when you talk to people around the league, the sense is that the league is higher on Musgrave than we are. You remember last year when there was some sense that Kyler Gordon could be like a 3rd-round player, and I kept hearing like, no, I think people like him a lot more than that.
Yeah,
and same sort of thing. I think there's a similar sense I feel like with Musgrave, who to me
the knee though, right? The knee. I mean,
he was cleared at the combine.
I know. I put him where I put him.
This is Luke Musgrave, tight end at Oregon State, by the way, who dealt with injury issues a lot at Oregon State. Only played 2 games last year, I think.
Yeah, he got hurt very early in the 2022 season.
11 catches, 169 yards in 2 games.
I'll tell you what, though. Yeah, you go back and watch him play, but it's 6'6", 253. What's not to really like about this guy? Because to me, when I watched him play, flexed, slot, it didn't really matter. He makes plays on the move. He's super reliable catching the ball, and he can adjust. Yeah, that's the one thing about these tight ends in this draft, the Kincaids, the Musgraves, those guys. When they're down the field and they're coming across the field, or they're able to adjust on the move and then catch it and then keep going. Not like catch it and stumble around and get tackled, but catch it and then get north-south in a hurry.
When we talk about how impressive the testing was for Darnell Washington, I think we look at the testing for Musgrave, a guy who had the best 10-yard split of any tight end at the combine, being as big as he is. I think when you look at the footwork for him, he has the best footwork at the line of scrimmage of any tight end in this class, by far. It looks like a receiver at times, the way his footwork is off the line of scrimmage. And I just think that when you talk about the modern tight end, and we hear Jerry Jones talk at the combine about, man, what an advantage it would be to have a Travis Kelce-like player, that to me sounds like Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrave. Those are the guys that it sounds like. And so I think we absolutely need to be talking about those two at 26.
I know in my notes I wrote down, this guy looks like a big receiver. So to your point, we were talking about footwork and getting off, the line of scrimmage and things like that. I think that's if a guy has that, to me, has that fit where he's he's coming off like a wide receiver, then that makes your point.
Now, on the interior here, some of the guys that we're talking about, we're going to lead off by figuring out if maybe a center is actually a guard. Frank in Flower Mound, my hometown currently. Yeah. Flower Mound. That's
There's
where
Joe in Flower Mound.
This is Frank in Flower Mound from the 972. Any chance the Cowboys take John Michael Schmitz, center/guard from Minnesota at 26? I would be cool with it if he can play guard next season. I think that the Cowboys believe John Michael Schmitz could play guard.
Yeah.
I think center is his spot, but I think they believe he could slide in and play guard effectively. And what's your thumbnail scouting report on Minnesota guard center John Michael Schmitz?
One of the big things is when you watch centers play is how much movement can they get, and what is their ability to reach wide techniques. And when I mean wide techniques, I'm talking about usually you'll get teams that play even fronts, with 4-man lines and stuff like that, odd fronts, 3-man lines. But when you got guys playing like a wide 3, and a 3 technique plays on the outside shoulder of the guard, and there are plenty of times where you watch John Michael Schmitz at Minnesota reach a really wide technique, like to the point where head is all the way across, and then now the rear comes around, and as they're moving, he's got the guy hooked. He's got the guy pinned.
Linderbaum was able to do that a lot last year.
Exactly. And see, it's funny we say this about John Michael Schmitz, because Linderbaum from Iowa, very similar. Mm-hmm. But they passed on Linderbaum. You know what I'm saying? So to me, if you're talking about John Michael Schmitz, I kind of feel like that they're going to pass on him as well.
Do you think they thought now I think the difference might be that John Michael Schmitz is a guy that they would think could play guard. I don't think they ever thought Linderbaum could play guard.
No, but they were worried
Schmitz
about the
is a little bigger.
Yeah, a little bit, but 301.
Yeah, a little bit. Linderbaum was like 290.
290. Yeah, exactly. I've got Schmitz as my 51st best player on the board.
Ooh.
So
not as big a fan as our buddy Zach Wolchuk here.
No, and to me though, that like you say, that's still in the second round, but does he get to you at 58 there? I just don't see. I think it's going to be close. I got Tippmann from Wisconsin ahead of him.
Ooh.
So I got Tippmann as the 44th best player on my board. So
as we look at the interior here, look at some of these guys, one of the questions is you got to figure out if a certain tackle belongs on the interior. And Brian, stop me if you've heard this one before. A dominant tackle at Northwestern who has some length questions, and a lot of people are projecting as a guard. Does that sound familiar?
Sounds familiar.
Sounds a lot like Rashawn Slater from a couple years ago. Well, now we're asking the same questions about Peter Skoronski.
Same school.
From Northwestern. And when you look at Skoronski, same sort of thing that whoever's running, shout out to the weight program there at Northwestern, because Slater was a powerful monster. I feel like Skoronski's really powerful. Brian, is Skoronski a guard or a tackle to you with his 32-inch arms?
He's a guard is what he is. He's 6'4", he's 313, and he plays left tackle. And he's listed as one of the best, and these were my notes, listed as one of the best tackles in the country, but I'm not so sure about that because I feel like he's probably could be one of the best guards in the country if you played him there. So I think to me, when you look at Skoronski, though, he could get a little top heavy at times, but man, when he gets his hands inside, he's got the footwork. He does have the power. You know, I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that it's no problem getting away from the line of scrimmage for him. It's, you know, when he makes contact, he could sit down. He plays with knee bend. He's got power. He's athletic. He can move. You know, if you want to play him in space, you want to get him to the second level, you want to get the scoops, the reach, the cutoff blocks, he can do all that stuff.
Yeah, I think that when you look at Skoronski, you've got the perfect. The only limitation here is the length. That's really it.
Yeah.
And even still, I don't think it shows up on tape that the length gives him problems a lot.
Yeah.
It's just more a measurement that doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL often. I think he could play tackle at the NFL. I think a lot of people are going to kick him inside to guard. I think whoever picks him is probably planning on playing him at guard.
Yeah.
Because of the length questions. But you want to talk about technique, power, footwork. It's all there for him. He's going to be, to me, he's going to be a really, really great run blocker and a really above average pass blocker.
This could be Zach Martin. This could be Zach Martin.
Right here. I think that's who Lance Zierlein had compared him to.
This is Zach Martin when you watch him play at Notre Dame, and then they kick him inside, and then you see him really take to the position.
Would you be at all interested? What range would Skoronski have to get into before you start saying, I'm going to make some calls?
Well, I'm bored. So I would, if he got to the middle of the draft and maybe got down to close to, was the trade at 18, I believe.
Yep.
If he got to 18 somehow, I'm on the phone. I'm trying to go, because if you get him, your left guard spot that's it.
Lockdown.
Yeah, and then even, we were starting to hear some whispers about, could this be...
That's some power there if you have Tyler Smith and Peter Skoronski as the left side of your line.
But think about Zach Martin. Zach Martin, how long is he for this? How long is it? Another year? Is another 2 years? I mean, remember how...
I think they're aware that there's time running out there.
There's time running out.
Yeah.
They know that, yeah.
Now, when you look at some of the other guards here, the Skoronski obviously is one that's likely not to fall into their range. John Michael Schmitz, we don't even know if they would view him as primarily guard or if they would have questions about his size.
I got him as a center.
You've got two guards here that get a lot of discussion. Osiris Torrance from Florida, Steve Avila, the guard from TCU. If you have your preference there, Brian, are you going Avila or Torrance?
You tell me who you want.
Avila. Avila to me is a slightly more athletic, and not that he's a great athlete, he is a slightly more athletic Ron Leary to me. And I think that they've been trying to replace that power at left guard since Ron Leary left, however long ago that was, 7 years ago.
I've gone so back and forth on this one. I would take Torrance. I think I would take Torrance here. I have one at 30.
No questions about getting up to the second level, which you have to do in the NFL as a guard these days.
But man, there's times where Avila is not...
I think Avila gets up there better than Torrance does.
But the thing about Torrance is he gets so much... His movement is so good.
He's powerful.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of those things where initially, because I thought he was playing at 347 pounds.
Is the gap between Torrance and Avila's power greater than the gap between Avila and Torrance's athleticism to the second level?
I think that Torrance is going to have to play in a system. I think you're correct about this. I think Torrance is going to have to play in a system where it's more about power than athletic ability. But I'm kind of feeling like if this is a team that's interested in being that run blocking, if they want to, if in fact, I'm telling you, we're talking about the Cowboys, or if you're anybody listening out there, if you're just listening to us because your team needs a guard, if your team needs a power guard, Torrance, I think, is your guy.
I think I'd agree with that if that's all you were looking for. I just think that with so much needed to get to the second level in this day and age and how much they ask of
well, you could get
linemen.
push. You could get that combo push. You get the tackle and that was. I mean, think about, and to your point, think about how much, again, if you're a Cowboy fan out there, think about what was going on with Steele and Martin.
Yeah.
And how much push they got on, and Steele is
They do some of the best combo run blocking in the NFL.
No question. It's like, but it's when Smith got over there, it wasn't as clean.
No.
And so you're like going, wow, do I have to have a really powerful guy? But this is to your point. Or do I need a really good athlete over there? You know?
Which Avila's not an excellent athlete, but I think that the athlete power combo is better than the athlete power combo with Torrance. I think Torrance is a more powerful player. I think Avila is a better athlete, and the gap's bigger there.
I think Torrance going from 347 to 330. I think you're seeing some commitment there. I think you're seeing,
Let's hope we don't want Aaron Gibson here.
No, it was 404. That wasn't 330. That was 404.
So I just said we don't want to get to Aaron Gibson, Brian.
Aaron Gibson was he was back in the day, Detroit Lion, Aaron Gibson.
Yeah, ended up in Dallas for a little bit.
Yeah, biggest helmet ever, I think, in football.
Bruce Bochy-sized head there for Aaron Gibson. Yeah. Let's talk about some of this with Dane Brugler from The Athletic. He's going to join us next here on the Love of the Star live on 105.3 The Fan.
Don't miss EarthX 2023, taking place on Earth Day, the world's largest green gathering. EarthX is returning to Dallas and Fair Park April 21st to April 23rd. Learn how you can love the world you live in from the top environmental organizations and innovators on the planet. Mix learning with pleasure and enjoy live music, art, and food. EarthX, the only place you should be on Earth Day. Receive notifications, the latest news, and register for free at earthx.org.
The mind-gut connection is an undeniable truth. Science and nature come together to bring you Synergy, the original organic raw kombucha. Transform your garden with 9 billion living probiotics. Strength, immunity, clarity. Sip from nature's source, tend to your garden, and watch it bloom. Find your Synergy today.
Eleanor, Texans. Shane again with Mullen & Mullen. If you've been injured in an accident, call 214-INJURED. Not taking immediate action may cost you time and money. If no recovery, there's no expense or fees. It's been that way since '83. 214-INJURED, mullenandmullen.com.
According to the National Highway Traffic Administration, a car or truck accident occurs every minute of the day. The law office of Bailey & Gallion, the official law firm of the Texas Rangers, has been representing injured clients for over 40 years. We can help you get medical treatment with no upfront cost to you. Accidents happen, but when the wrongful actions of another person causes you harm, you have a right to seek full and fair compensation. You deserve aggressive, experienced, board-certified personal injury attorneys. Bailey & Gallion, the official law firm of the Texas Rangers, has offices throughout Dallas-Fort Worth and across the state for your convenience. Call Bailey & Gallion at 800-LAW-OFFICE. That's 800-LAW-OFFICE, or visit our website at thetexasattorney.com. Let Bailey & Gallion, the official law firm of the Texas Rangers, solve your legal puzzle. If you've been injured in an accident, call 800-LAW-OFFICE, 800-LAW-OFFICE, or thetexasattorney.com. thetexasattorney.com.
This is the How Do They Live Like That podcast, sponsored by Champion Energy. Our guests today are Mr. and Mrs. Holdover, who refuse to live in the 21st century.
Hi.
Hi.
Are we live yet?
No, this is a podcast. So why are you two so stuck in your ways? Like, why not switch to Champion Energy for low rates and great service?
Sounds like a hassle.
Yeah.
What if your listeners changed to a different radio station?
Ooh.
Again, this is a podcast.
A pod what?
Maybe we should take a caller.
Don't be a holdover. Switch to Champion Energy for fair prices and great service. It's time for some new energy. PUCT 10098.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover, all for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com.
Ruben Portillo running the board, and Carter Freeman at home running the video. And now we are joined by, what would you say, Brian, the greatest draft analyst in media history?
I would say, and I've been working with this guy for 11, 12 years now. And when we were starting,
how old was he back then? 16.
He looks like he's 16 today, but he was a young guy back then. He's still a young guy, but I've always said this about Dane Brugler. If I ever got back, and there's no shot of me ever getting back, but if I ran a team, this is one of the first guys I would hire. This guy has got a great eye for talent. He presents his reports very well, his argument. He's passionate about this, but he has made quite a niche for himself in this drafting world. I'm super, super proud of him because he always had it, but man, he's taken it to a whole nother level. So really glad to have Dane Brugler on with us today.
Yes, we will welcome in now Dane Brugler from The Athletic. His draft guide is out, The Beast, the 2023 version. Dane, how you doing, man?
I think I used up all my favors with that intro. Really appreciate it. No, this is my pleasure to be able to join you guys. This will be a lot of fun.
So we were just talking before we went to break. We're talking about Osiris Torrance versus Steve Avila, who, we think there's a decent chance one of those guys could be in play for the Cowboys at 26. Torrance, at least for me, a more powerful player. Avila, I think, is a better athlete, not an elite one, but I think he's a better athlete. And I think the disparity between Avila's athleticism and Torrance's athleticism is greater than the disparity between Torrance's advantage in the strength department over Avila. How do you see those two players, and who do you think could be a better fit here in Dallas?
Well, they're both similar size. They're power guys. They're both over 330 pounds. These are guys that want to get their hands on you and dictate the action. They want to be, put you where they want. It's something that it's been fun to watch both these guys over the last year because, with Torrance going from Louisiana, where he didn't have to transfer. He was already considered a top 50 guy at this time last year, but he goes to Florida and plays in the SEC, challenges himself, and played at a high level, which you love to see. Avila, he's, at TCU, he was a center last year, and he moves to left guard and holds it down. He was a key part of TCU in that run. They went on to the national championship game. I think when you look at these two, you can make a case for either one. I think something that really stands out with Avila is the versatility. He literally has, you could put on a tape of him starting at 4 different positions. That matters. That's something that is, it's functional versatility, where with Torrance, it's good to see him play both guard spots at the Senior Bowl, just as, kind of check that box, left guard, right guard. But he was primarily a right guard in college, and, that's something that is part of his evaluation. So both these guys are powerful, and I think somewhere in the early second is where I'd feel great taking one of them. But offensive linemen, they don't last. So if they snuck into the first, wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think both these guys are plug and play and ready to go from day one.
Dane, one of the second things that Bobby and I are trying to figure out is, and by the way, great explanation about the 2 guards. Where are you, say, with Darnell Wright from Tennessee potentially? Would you say, okay, him being a tackle that potentially could play guard would be better than maybe the 2 guards you just talked about?
Yeah, and Wright is a guy that some teams have on the board as a guard. And it's not that he can't play tackle. It's more so, just trying to maximize what he can do. And I think he is someone that can step in from day one and play right tackle and play at a pretty high level. But if you move him inside, you look at that thick body. This is another 330-plus pounder. That thickness that he has, the power that he plays with. He wants to maul you. That nasty demeanor that he plays with, you see it on almost every single rep that he has. So that he has almost a guard body with that mass on his frame, and the way he likes to play. So I can understand why some teams would want to move him to guard. But the way he played this year at tackle, man, he was so good. Week in, week out. It doesn't mean you throw on the Alabama tape. You throw on later in the season, like, he didn't wear down. He was still, the bright spot of that offense. And, Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman, and, they get all the attention. But, man, Darnell Wright, he was a big part of that Tennessee offensive success they had this year.
Dane, it seems like the fan base in Dallas wants nothing to do with Bijan Robinson and really wants nothing to do with a tight end.
Crazy.
But yeah, and again, you've been in this market a long time, so you understand the fan base, and I'm sure that when you make your mock drafts and you put all that out, you kind of you feel the Dallas Cowboy fan heat on that. Can you handicap how these tight ends look to you? I know that people have the opportunity to get the beast, they get on the athletic site there and they can get it with their subscription. But how do you have these tight ends handicapped potentially if one's there for the Cowboys at 26?
It'll be interesting which tight ends are available. This is such a tight end rich draft class this year that you could see 1, 2, maybe even 3 come off the board before the Cowboys are able to pick. But at the same time, you could also understand why some teams might opt to wait until the 2nd, 3rd, 4th rounds because of just how deep the position is, which could be good news for the Cowboys and, where they're picking and a tight end that could be there. For me, Michael Mayer from Notre Dame is the top tight end this year. He gives you the complete package. He's 6'4.5", 250, not an overwhelming blocker, but he's a functional blocker. He'll get the job done, doesn't mind that part of the game. And he's also just one of the best contested catch tight ends that I've personally evaluated the last 5-6 years, over the middle of the field, working the seam. It doesn't matter what's going on around him. He has the way he can box out. He's a basketball guy. He grew up wanting to play Kentucky basketball. But he understands how to use his body. how to attack the ball before the defender even has a chance to get his hands on it. Michael Mayer is that type of guy, and so more than just a safety valve, more than just a last resort type of option, he can be someone that helps move the chains consistently and someone that the defense has to worry about. So if Michael Mayer is on the board when the Cowboys are on the clock, I think there's a good chance he has a star in his helmet. But Dalton Kincaid from Utah, I think he's right there. But it just offers something a little bit different. He's not the blocker that Mayer is, but you could make the argument Dalton Kincaid's the best pass catcher in this draft, more so than any receiver, more so than any tight end. His ability to isolate the football, go up and get the ball, and then what he can do after the catch. It's really impressive to watch his body control for a guy that's almost 6'4", 250 pounds, coming off the back injury. So, it's something, all the doctors and everything ought to be fine, or, give the sign of approval. Everything I've heard is that, he'll be fine for training camp in the season, maybe just a little bit banged up right now. But Dalton Kincaid, I think if he's still available, he'll also be on that short list the Cowboys will be looking at. And then, Luke Musgrave, I'm a fan of, and then the same thing with Darnell Washington. But I think those first two guys, Mayer and Kincaid, those are the two tight ends that Cowboys fans need to keep an eye on.
Joined here with Dane Bergler from The Athletic, one of the best draft guys you'll ever find doing this. Dane, and like I just said, you've done this for a long time. Have you ever had to deal with as many wide receivers that don't probably fit your eye with the height and the weight and all? I mean, we were talking 5'9", the 182s. How do you have that on your board when you're looking at the guys like Flowers and Downs and Mims and people like that?
Yeah, it's funny because of my top 7 receivers in this draft, 4 of them are under 180 pounds. And
never happened before to you, right? I mean,
no. And that doesn't include Flowers, who's 182, so he's above that. So 5 are under 185. It's just and I think it's a product of, part of it is the NFL evolving and offenses being a little more open-minded about the type of receiver that they're willing to use in today's game. And part of it is, this is what the college game is giving us. The NFL can't create true X receivers that are 6'3.5", 220, and you can't create those guys. This is what the college game is giving us, and so they're going to make do with what they have. And I think there's a good chance we only see 2, maybe 3 receivers go in the first round. It's not like the past few years where we've been just spoiled by the wide receiver talent. For me, the top receiver this year is Jackson Smith-Njigba from Ohio State. And it would have been my 7th receiver last year, probably right after Jahan Dotson. So, it's just a different type of wide receiver class. But you know what? Every team is looking for those dynamic weapons. And so I still think we're going to see these guys go early, even though I think most of these players in other drafts would be looked at as second-round players. And the guys that, aren't small, you still have questions about. Quentin Johnston from TCU, 6'3", 210, didn't test particularly well, which we expected him to. Way too many drops on his tape. The routes are a work in progress. So, even Jalen Hyatt is a burner, but he's not a well-rounded receiver. There's a lot of talent with these receivers, but a lot of question marks as well. So I think we just need to temper our expectations a little bit with this wide receiver class, and it'll be interesting to see how they come off the board, how early. We'll see plenty of these guys come off the board on day 2.
Will it be the run of wide receivers or the run of corners in the second round?
I mean, both, really. I mean, if we think about it, with receivers, we'll see how many actually end up going in the first. But then in the second, we'll have a good chance Jalen Hyatt's still there, maybe Zay Flowers, maybe Quentin Johnston. Josh Downs will be somewhere in that second round. He's a prototypical slot receiver. Cedric Tillman from Tennessee, he's the closest thing to a true X that we have in this draft.
Yep, that's the McCarthy guy.
Right. And so, but what's the right value for him? Marvin Mims from Oklahoma, somewhere in that day 2 range as well. I'm a big fan of Jaden Reed. I think Rashee Rice from SMU, somewhere day 2. Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss, another guy that could be considered that one of the true X's that this class has to offer. So we'll see a run on these guys on day 2, and then with the corners, Gonzalez go early, Devin Witherspoon will go early, Joey Porter somewhere in that mid to late first round. I think Deonte Banks will be somewhere in that mid to late first round. And then in the second, that's where Emmanuel Forbes, all 166 pounds of him, Keely Ringo from Georgia, DJ Turner from Michigan, who ran the fastest 40 this year at the Combine. I really like his ability in the slot as a nickel player. Clark Phillips from Utah, another really talented nickel player. Both the South Carolina corners, Tyreek Stevenson from Miami, Juju Brents from Kansas State. So, yeah, it's wide receivers and corners. Every year we see more of those guys drafted at those 2 positions than any other position, and that'll hold true this year, especially on day 2.
Dane Brugler from The Athletic. You can follow him on Twitter at DP Brugler, and you can get his new draft guide just by going and subscribing to The Athletic. In fact, I think there's some deal right now of like $2 a month or something. You got any deals going on right now for subscriptions, Dane?
That's it, $2 a month. And so, if you just want to sign up for a month, that's fine. Check us out for a month. You get all our draft coverage that we've got going on here the next few weeks. And so I think for the draft guide itself, $2 for that, I don't know that you can find a better value.
No,
exactly.
There's no question about that. Hey, thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate you. Happy drafting season to you, man. I hope all your picks work out for you there, man.
You too. I look forward to catching up with you guys later on.
Dane Brugler from The Athletic. Hour 2, the final hour of the Love of the Star Live, coming up next here on 105.3 The Fan.
We have you covered, Stars fans, with exclusive content from 2-time Stanley Cup champion Craig Ludwig and NHL reporter Sean Shapiro. It's Spits and Suds, 3 times weekly on the Odyssey app or wherever your favorite podcasts are found.
Are your investments going nowhere? Here's a tip that always pays big dividends. Invest in yourself, your talent, your smarts, your skills. Maybe it's time to make that investment and start a career in IT or upskill to boost your current career. At My Computer Career, you can bank on us. We'll help you get the right skills and the right certifications to start or advance your IT career. IT keeps growing, so go with the growth at My Computer Career. The right training, the right timing, the right career. Invest in you at mycomputercareer.edu. Start now.
When interest rates rise, it's not all bad. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, helping you understand why now is the time to purchase an annuity. Annuities are the only products that will guarantee you an income you can't outlive. It's those guarantees that are tied to treasury rates. And as we know, those rates are at 40-year highs. If you're in or within 10 years of retirement, use this to your advantage. This is exactly why it's possible to receive up to a 25% upfront bonus for income.
Find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Your turn it on, leave it on. Home of America's team is 105.3 The Fan.
Hello, baby.
KRLD FM and HD1, Dallas Fort Worth.
Always live on the free Odyssey app. This year's NFL Draft is April 27th through the 29th, live from Kansas City, and no one will cover it better than 105.3 The Fan and DallasCowboys.com. Here with an early look at that 3-day football party and special edition of our Love of the Star podcast are two of our draft experts, G-Bag Nation's Brian Broaddus, and from the Sean and RJ Morning Show, Bobby Belt.
Hour number 2 here of our live version of the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, joined by Brian Broaddus. We got Ruben Portillo on the board and Carter Freeman operating the video back at his home. He's grinding today, all the way back at home, running the video. Truckwreck.com fan text 877-881-1053. 877-881-1053. We'll do a Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. If you're a listener of Love of the Star, you know that reference to our probably most loyal listener, Dean Julia. And so if you guys want to drop in your draft questions here for Broaddus and tap into his knowledge and have me stumble through my own explanations, we can do that. So drop us your questions on the YouTube, the Twitch, on the text line, and we'll get those questions answered for you. Brian, what do you think is the biggest question you still have to answer for yourself before we get the draft going? Is it sorting those receivers out, those smaller receivers?
Yeah, I think because the possibility of, Dallas looking maybe not in the first round, but where are you rounds 2, 3, and 4 with these receivers? This time last year we were talking very highly about Jalen Tolbert, coming out of South Alabama, and I think that was a little bit. I think that was a little bit of shock there for the Cowboys
that he got there.
Well, that he got there, but that he struggled the way he did.
Oh yeah.
And so you're kind of wondering, okay, well, who's the guy that you're going to take in this draft if you take in the 3rd, 4th round? That's going to be kind of a plug and play guy or come in and not have those problems.
I think that when you look at the fact that they need a prototypical X receiver, and we talked about it last episode or last hour, depending on when you're listening to this, with Dane Brugler, and he threw out 2 names there that I think make a lot of sense for them on day 2, and that's Cedric Tillman from Tennessee and Jonathan Mingo from Ole Miss.
But see, that's what I think. I think that's where we are right now. Those are like the 2 biggest receivers in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I like Tillman more than Mingo, personally.
Yeah, I have Tillman as my Tillman's my 63rd best player on my board, and then Mingo is behind him. Where do I have Mingo on my board here? Have him. Where did I have him?
You didn't even grade him?
No,
You're
I
just just forget Jonathan Mingo.
I graded him. I just don't.
Is that Barkevius's brother?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Did you ever read David Hellman's LSU article on Barkevius Mingo?
I absolutely did, yeah. I have him at 91 is what I have Mingo at.
So significantly behind Tillman. Would you be happy? So if you were to get Cedric Tillman in the 3rd round, are you happy with that value?
I think so. I mean, to me, I'm more of a big bodied receiver is what I'm trying to find here. So I'm kind of in that mode right now where, if you said Tillman, to me, when you watch him play, everybody talks about Hyatt, but the thing with Mingo Tillman, excuse me, that guy makes a lot of plays, and I'm talking about like the dirty plays.
He will. When you talked last year,
the inside stuff.
What did you say last year about the Cowboys receiving core? The biggest issue with them. There was nobody to attack the football.
Nobody attacking the ball.
Cedric Tillman will attack. That is a my ball mentality kind of guy.
I mean, I said this in my notes. He reminds me very much of those receivers that the Chargers played with. Those big body, the Keenan Allen, those guys that are the 6'2", 6'3", they run inside, they catch every ball. I mean, he has got that kind of ability break tackles when he catches the ball. The thing I worry about though, Bobby, is that if you're settling in on, okay, we're gonna try and draft one of these big receivers, you might have to go a little bit earlier than what you thought because there's just not that many in this draft.
You know who I think there are two names that pop up. They're both so old. I'm getting old, Brian. I'm starting to see gray hairs in the beard here, and it's starting to show up in my scouting reports. Just when I see players and I start trying to compare them. When I see Cedric Tillman, you know the first two guys that pop into my mind?
Who's that?
Anquan Bolden.
Oh.
Who's not that old.
No.
But the other one is really old. Marty Booker.
Marty Booker from the Bears.
Yeah.
Back in the
You
day.
remember Marty?
I do.
Marty Booker is who he reminds me, and I know that's such a random comparison, but I even went back and after I thought that, I was like, I'm going to go back, I'm going to watch some stuff of Booker, and I watched it, I was like, yeah, that's who he reminds me of. That's who he plays
I'll
like.
tell you what, with Anquan Bolden, I'll never forget this because I was sitting in a draft room with Walter Juliff, longtime Cowboys scout, later left to go work with the Vegas Raiders.
Yep.
And, Walter's out of the league now. But, I mean, Walter goes all the way back to, like, 1988. That's how that's how long he came with the Cowboys in the Tom Landry administration. And Walter, with Anquan Bolden, was like, we were talking about him. I think he went to school at Florida State, if I'm correct about that. And Walter's like, yes, you guys could put him on the board anywhere you want, because everybody was complaining about the lack of speed that he had.
Yeah, because he was like a 4.7 guy.
Yeah, everybody was talking about this guy can't run, this guy can't do this guy can't do that. And I'll never forget Juliff looking at everybody in that room and says, you SOBs can put him wherever you want. He's going to have the best career. I don't want to hear any more about him not running, not doing this, not doing that, because he will have a long career in this league. And everybody's like, yeah, sure. Well, the guy can't run. And Walter was right about him. He did. He had a very long, productive career. So the comparisons of him and Marty Booker and those guys like that, I could absolutely see what you're talking about.
All right, let's go to a couple questions from our Dean Julia Love the Star mailbag via the fan text here. First question from your buddy, Kenny and Quinlan, everybody's buddy.
Yeah,
he's listening this morning. He says, great show today as always.
Thank
question,
you.
What 3 positions do the Cowboys need to address in this draft? And then he says rock and roll. You know, he loves that rock and roll tequila.
He does love the rock and roll tequila. You got to figure about the guard, right?
You do. If you are planning on Tyler Smith being a tackle, you need a guard.
You need to think about the guard. You need to think about potentially what are you going to do inside. I mean, you've got the one technique with Hankins. Do you want to add another piece? Are you thinking maybe Bohannon's going to be a guy? I mean, are you looking at defensive tackle? I think we talked about it earlier with Sanders. You're looking at linebacker with the Cowboys here.
We've talked about tight end and receiver.
Tight end receiver as well.
And running back.
I think running back, yeah. To me, you got to look at what is going to be, who is going to be the guy that's, Jones could be that guy who they signed, could be the backup guy. Who is the guy that if you don't do anything with Pollard as far as long term, who is going to be the starting running back here next year? And that's what I want to get into. I should have asked this question with Dane Brugler about the running backs and, which one of these guys, Spears from Tulane, Bigsby from Auburn, Roschon Johnson from Texas, who would that guy, if you don't take somebody in, the first couple of rounds, who is that running back at maybe 3, 4, and 5 that you might want to maybe think about?
Yeah, I mean, the guy that I like a lot in the 3rd round personally at running back, and the guy they think they like a lot, Kendre Miller at TCU is a guy that you've heard so much chatter about with them over the last several months. I think, what was it, all the way back in November, I think that was the first time I told you, like, hey, I think there's some Kendre Miller fascination here in Dallas. And so that's a guy that I think they've had a lot of interest in. They had a 2-day meeting with him, a local visit. They did a private workout with him. They were at his pro day. I think they met with him at the combine. So there's been a lot of interest there. On the running backs topic, question from 817 here, Brian. What separates Jahmyr Gibbs from Alabama and Bijan Robinson from Texas? Who I know you like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, but you do have Robinson a little ahead of him. So what is it that separates them and puts Robinson ahead of him for you? For me, I do have questions about the long-term sustainability of Jahmyr Gibbs running between the tackles. he is a smaller guy, and I think that some of that shows up on tape at times.
Yeah, I've actually Robinson would be number 3 player on my board, and Gibbs would be 16 on my board right there of the guys I have. I have a first round grade on. I think the thing with Gibbs, you don't the elusiveness with him. With Robinson, you see that make 1 miss, make 2 miss, make 3 miss. Now you're that kind of thing. I think with Gibbs,
what I see is Gibbs only makes people miss in the open field.
In the open field, yeah, that's where, and I think that to me, that's where, you see him. He's got quick feet, and he does have some shiftiness in the way he played with the burst. He's got that extra gear, and you're right. When he gets in the open field, you see an extra gear to separate. So I think the power is very similar to the two, but if you said, wait, which one of these guys do you think could catch the ball better? Might be Gibbs.
Oh yeah, I think it is Gibbs.
But
for sure.
but as far as making guys like the 1, 2, 3 guys miss, I think it's a little bit more of that. I think that's a little bit more of that with Robinson as opposed to Gibbs.
I don't think there's anything I think Robinson does everything well.
Yeah.
Like everything you would ask a running back to do. He is a complete back. That was one of the things they always said about Zeke when Zeke was coming out. Zeke was a complete back. He could do anything. He could catch the ball, he could pass protect, he could run. Everything about him worked out. If you could pick a Bijan Robinson at 26, that would obviously be huge. 214 text in, and we'll hit this one really quick before we go to break and welcome Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl. Brian, Baylor defensive tackle Siaki Ika. Is that a second-round pick that you would be interested in? That is a trash can full of dirt that I know you love.
I know. And with Ika, I've got, like I say, I've got Ika in the 3rd. I've got him as my 73rd best player.
Is that when you talk about picking at the back end of a round, would you feel okay picking him at the back end of the second with Dallas's pick?
I think because you're not going to get back around to him. Yeah, I think that's what you almost have to go around early on some of these guys.
Yep.
But and Ika is a guy I started off. I really, really liked what I saw from him. He's 6'3", he's 335. Just brute power, strength for the position. The speed and quickness, though, is also there. But playing on the move, I think, you see some really quality things. Super active in the way he gets down the line and to the outside. He competes. I really think that's something that you got to really like about. He could be a hard guy to handle one-on-one, almost like a sumo wrestler in the way that he kind of just he uses that power and then disengages his guy. But I've got others ahead of him in that second round when you start to talk about Mozzie Smith, Benton, and then Dexter from
Keanu Benton from Wisconsin,
and Dexter from Florida. Yeah, would be my guys.
Coming up next, we will talk with Jim Nagy, the director of the Senior Bowl. A lot of really interesting Senior Bowl prospects that could be on the radar for the Cowboys as they head towards the draft and the 26th pick. We'll get his thoughts on those players next here on this live edition of the Love of the Star podcast on 105.3 The Fan.
Text away your thoughts to the guys right now on the truckwreck.com fan text line at 877-881-1053.
Today, man?
Bobby, I'm doing great. Brian, how are you, man?
Doing well, man. You've got to throw in there multiple Super Bowl winning scout.
Yes, he is
too.
that.
Yeah.
He is absolutely that. He's got a few rings there. In fact, we were figuring it out before the show. Jim, you were a PR intern in Green Bay in 1996.
I was. That was Brian will tell you. Will tell you, man. When I was coming out of college, there weren't scouting internships. There was no foot in the door. There was no foot in the door in a scouting department. Yeah. So I did my research and I found out that was the way in. So yeah, I did it the old-fashioned way. I sent resumes and cover letters to all 32 teams, and thank God the Packers were the only team that called, and I ended up there for a pretty magical year. But yeah, that seems like a lifetime ago.
It does. Every time I think about when they says winning a Super Bowl and all that, I'm like, it was one of those times where I look like the highlights. It wasn't even like, the HD TV and stuff now. It's like, it's like this grainy, bad video and stuff. But Jim, hey, great job as always on the Senior Bowl, the talent that you and your staff put together there. As you're following the song, and I know you talk to a lot of scouts and a lot of personnel directors, general managers and stuff like that, what's their biggest concern going into this draft right now?
I would just say the biggest thing is the lack of talent up top. I think there's the pretty much the prevailing feeling in the league right now is that outside of the, you take the quarterbacks out of the equation, like how many real blue chip players are there at other positions? But there's good depth. There is good depth. I think, the sweet spot for this draft is like rounds 3 through 5. I think the tight end position, the running back position, there's some, offensive lines shaped up to be a better class than what people thought. Maybe coming into the fall, that group's really shaped up. But yeah, just if you're looking, those teams drafting up high, especially you got teams like Seattle with a couple first round picks. Those teams with 2 1s, there's not a lot of blue chip talent, like cornerstone franchise talent in this year's draft.
When you say the sweet spot is rounds 3 through 5, I remember we were saying similar things last year too. Do you think that this is just going to be the case for the next couple of years, just with these COVID seniors, these super seniors who are hanging around for a while, that extra year of eligibility is just going to cause for some really deep classes?
It certainly has. I mean, we've seen that. So, you just bring it back to what we do at the Senior Bowl. And in the first couple of years I was there, we went into the fall with about 500 names on the board after doing all our work in the spring and the summer on the upcoming class. And then coming out of that COVID year with the extra COVID seniors, it swelled to about 700. And this year those numbers were back down. I'll be curious to see where we're at this summer. If those things have leveled off, and then also the NIL stuff has really helped in terms of keeping guys in school too. So that's added to it a little bit. But I don't know what the reason for it's been. It just seems like a couple of down years when we're talking about those, like I said, those blue chip players.
One of the teams I know you scouted for, the Seattle Seahawks, and you were there at the same time that Dan Quinn was. And Dan Quinn, Cowboys fans have been such big fans of his. And one of the guys we're hearing that Dan Quinn is a big fan of is somebody who had a really great week with you guys down in Mobile, and that's Will McDonald, the edge rusher from Iowa State. We've heard some buzz there that he could be in play for the Cowboys at 26. Give us your thumbnail scouting report, your kind of overview of what kind of a player Will McDonald is.
Well, if he's still there at 26, he better be in play. I'll say that. I don't think he's getting to 26. But he's a guy that he's gained momentum through the process for a couple of reasons. One, at the Senior Bowl, he played more outside linebacker, more he did a lot more standing up than he did at Iowa State. That's the impressive thing of what he did at Iowa State. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's got 30-some career sacks at the college level. I mean, he basically played like a 4-eye 5 technique where he was really tied tight to a tackle. They never really let him line up wide and let him rip. The guy's so athletic and bendy off the edge. So just seeing him play in space and seeing him play on his feet has helped him, coming out of our week. The fact that he's gained some weight through the process and gotten into the 240s, I think teams are seeing, okay, well, we can get this guy to 250 or wherever we need to get him. But I was talking to a head coach at a pro day who had just been at Will's pro day the day before. And he's like, Jim, he's a little under bulked. But he plays with such bend and such natural leverage that he doesn't play small. Like, you don't see the guy get bounced around a ton. So just in terms of high-end pass rusher, athletic ability, 6'9" high jumper coming out of high school, there's just so much there. There's so much there. And there's production on paper in a scheme where he really wasn't schemed to have production. So there's a lot to like, man. I'm surprised it's taken this full process for Will to be kind of a named first-round pick, and you shoot credit Mel Kiper. I think Mel's the first one that threw him up there. Mel threw him up there at like number 8 overall about a month ago, and so yeah, I don't think he gets to 26, but if he is, man, he'd look good in the Dallas Cowboy helmet.
Jim, it's we always, as we go through this process, and you guys do a great job of studying these players and putting your own boards together very, very early. Where are the media scouts behind where the NFL scouts are? Where are they? Is there a player or two that you're like, and you just mentioned McDonald, but is there somebody else, a couple other players that like media scouts are not on top of this guy like they should be, where the NFL scouts are saying, no, this guy's going to go a lot higher than where they have him?
I'm going to steal something off Twitter this morning, Brian, is from Daniel Jeremiah. Couple of the wide receivers, that's where I think the media scouts were off a little bit, was this year's receiver group. Sure. There's just too many guys in the 170s, too many guys that are 5'8", 5'9". Like, that's not where you want to be if you're drafting a first-round wide receiver.
No.
That's not where you want to live. And I get it that we're coming off a couple really loaded receiver classes. So we've had 5, 6, 7 receivers go early. So maybe they're trying to force guys up there just based off the last couple of years, but they don't really fit. And one guy that's really climbed out of our game is Jonathan Mingo. I really started to get a sense of that on the pro day circuit, talking to wide receivers coaches. He was the guy that they were really excited about. I mean, you're talking about a 6'2", 220-pound guy that runs in the mid 4.4s, really springy, bouncy athlete, can get open. I mean, he's got all that stuff. And then, there's a pretty good pedigree leaving Oxford right now with guys like A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf. So he's been a good riser. And then the other guy that DJ mentioned too is Cedric Tillman from Tennessee. To me, the fact that we're talking about Jalen Hyde in the first round, to me, Cedric Tillman's easily the best receiver on that football team. He was our highest graded senior receiver coming into the fall. I went up there to Knoxville to speak to the team, and he was my first priority in terms, they're like, what guys do you want to talk to after you're done talking to the team? And above Hendon Hooker, above Byron Young, who's going to be probably a second or third round edge player. It was Cedric Tillman, and he missed a bunch of the season because of injury. But he's a big receiver that can get open. He can run after the catch, and we've had a bunch of good Tennessee receivers in the Senior Bowl. Josh Palmer, Juwan Jennings, Bayless Jones. I thought Cedric was going to be the next in line, and he just couldn't make it to the game because of a foot injury. But man, he's a talented guy. So I think those are a couple guys right now that you see the media maybe coming around to a little bit just because there's more buzz coming out of the league right now about those guys.
Joined by Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl, one of the best all-star games you'll ever go to. The way Jim and his staff put together, it's a scout's dream for sure. Jimmy, when you look at these quarterbacks, and I'm not talking about Young and Stroud and Levis, and maybe not even Richardson, the Cowboys have kind of made it known that they would look at maybe one in the middle of this draft. You mentioned Hendon Hooker, probably going to go a lot higher than maybe what the Cowboys were going to are willing to do. How do you kind of handicap the O'Connells and the Toons and guys like that?
Yeah, there's going to be a run there. I think early day 3 on some of these guys. I think we're going to see a little bit of if Hendon goes in the first, like some people are saying now, I think you're going to see about a two round gap. I don't think you're going to see anyone really go in the second or third. I think a lot of teams are going to wait till that 4th, 5th round area where we saw like Bailey Zappi and Sam Howell come off the board last year. And you're looking at like Fresno's Jake Haener, who I think you talk to guys in the league. There's a lot of people that think Jake's going to be a starting level player in the league. He's whatever word you want to attach to it, moxie, what have you. I mean, the guy plays the position at a really high level. He's played a bunch of ball. I think when you look at this year's class, everyone's trying to learn their mistakes, kind of self-scout themselves why they missed on Brock Purdy a year ago. I mean, think about it. He was Mr. Irrelevant, and then I think it's not a physical tools thing because Brock is pretty average in those areas. I think where people feel like they missed the boat the most was the game reps and all the experience. So you look at like Jake Haener at Fresno, Clayton Tune at Houston, Max Duggan at TCU, even like DTR at UCLA. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that have played a bunch of college football. And Brian, as you know, man, like back in the day, you used to be able to develop that position.
Oh yeah.
You didn't have to force him on the field. I mean, you could carry a guy for a couple of years and really get him ready. Like it's not like that anymore. These guys are getting forced out on the field. It's not a developmental league, so they better come into the league with a lot of reps. And that's, to me, that's like flipping back to Anthony Richardson. I love the guy's physical talent. There's no way you can't if you ever get in front of this guy and watch him throw a football. But 13 starts is a scary proposition. Like when is he going to learn? When is he going to get those valuable game reps? And I think that down in your state, the Toons, the Duggans. I mean, those guys have played a ton of college football, and I think that's when teams are going to start targeting those guys early day 3.
Jim, when we talk about, like Brian had mentioned earlier, guys that maybe the media has been a little bit slower on, one of those guys I think I've gotten a sense of in the last couple of weeks, just when you talk to people around the league, is another Senior Bowl participant. Has the media still been too slow to come around on Northwestern's Tommy Adebawore?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, it's all like the groupthink thing, right? I mean,
sure.
We got, now that we have all the data in, like, why aren't we reacting more to the data? Especially with the underclassmen. Like, we had verified measurables on majority of the senior class coming into the year, but like Tommy was a junior. I mean, at Atamawa, he had another year at Northwestern. I had to call Pat Fitzgerald about him before we sent him the invite. I'm like, what's he going to do? We never want to send an invite to a kid that, that might have another year and go back. That's what's made this whole, COVID stuff delicate, because we've sent Senior Bowl invites and I get calls from head coaches like, hey, Jim, we're trying to keep this guy in another year.
Yeah.
So, again, we've got to revisit the junior class that we a lot of us just like threw up there at the top of the draft, and now that their verified measurables and testing stuff is coming back pretty average, those guys you got to push those guys down now that we have the information. And a guy like Atamawa, like, he's got rare stuff. Like, you don't just throw the word rare around, but like everyone's on Kalijah Cansey because Aaron Donald 2.0, just the whole Pittsburgh defensive tackle thing. And yeah, he's a dynamic player on college tape. But, he ran, 4.62 at the combine. Atamawa was 4.49. Cansey's arms are under 32 inches. Atamawa's are 34. And again, the only tape that really matters, and I this sounds really self-serving, and I don't mean it to sound this way at all. But the only tape that really matters is this the 3 technique game reps at Northwestern, which there weren't many, and then all the Senior Bowl stuff, because he does not project to be an NFL edge player. He's going to be a 290, 295 pound 3 technique. And that's what he did in Mobile all week. And he was voted practice player of the week by the other team's offensive linemen. These guys all vote on each other. Like, that's the one thing I've changed up since I got to the Senior Bowl 5 years ago, is that I have these guys vote on each other. The guys that lay hands on each other, the DBs vote on the wideouts and the O-line votes on the D-line. So, you look at that 1 week, that one exposure with a guy that's barely ever played in there. He's got length, he's got explosion, he's got rare speed, rare change of direction. I mean, it's just, if you don't have him in the first round, how are there 31 better prospects than this kid? Because, again, NFL teams aren't looking about next year. Like, in 2 or 3 years, what could this guy be? And it's kind of scary what this kid could be in 2 or 3 years.
Jim Nagy is the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl. Again, he is one of the best follows this time of year on social media. You can follow him on Twitter at @JimNagy_SB. Jim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me on, and enjoy the draft. Good to talk to you, Brian.
Thank you, sir. You too. Thank you for everything.
We're going to run through a mock draft simulation. We're going to see how much Brian Broaddus just pounds the table for Tanner McKee at 26 here, the Stanford quarterback that Broaddus is just obsessed with. You guys.
Get out of there. We're trading back.
We'll do that next year on this live edition of the Love of the Star podcast on 105.3 The Fan.
We've got you covered at Bloomdale Roofing. I'm Eric.
Jones.
She is like, I tell you what, Aisha has done a great job. Cannot wait to work with her on DallasCowboys.com. We got the draft coverage.
Simulcast here on 105.3 The Fan.
Super happy to be with all our team, all our teammates there. So it should be a lot of fun. We're gonna be at all those Plucker locations.
Yes, here at the station we'll have a bunch of our teammates out at Pluckers. That first night it'll be Aisha Morrison, Kyle Yeomans, myself, you, and Sean Sharif.
Yeah.
And then days 2 and 3, just swap out Sean and put Zach Wolchuk in there.
So looking forward to that. And again, I also want to thank too. If you listen to Love of the Star podcast, we also want to thank Boomer Jacks for their sponsorships as well.
Boomer Jacks has been absolutely wonderful. Another partner here at 105.3 The Fan. You need to go check them out. Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Remember, guys, those are the wing days. Those are the wing deals. Tuesdays, half price bone-in wings. Wednesdays, half price boneless wings. You need to get the hookup. All right, Brian, we're going to use the draftnetwork.com. We're going to use their mock draft simulator.
Okay, so I have to get my trade chart ready? Is that what
you
you're
need
saying?
to get your trade chart ready, and you need to get your grades ready, because we got to see if somebody's just aggressively sliding for you. So we're going to get this mock draft simulator started, and I think right off the top we know you're going to get a lot of quarterbacks in the first few picks. So here we go. We're going to kick off this simulator here, and the first pick, Brian, it's Bryce Young.
Not
to the
surprising.
Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, not surprising.
I think that makes sense.
I think that's a darn good pick.
A little bit of a surprise at number 2. The Texans take Anthony Richardson, not C.J. Stroud.
Not C.J. Stroud there. I tell you what, I think what's interesting about that.
I think the Texans maybe C.J. Stroud, Deshaun Watson have the same agent.
Yeah.
Maybe the Texans in the simulator Texans do that.
Zerline is Lance Zerline, who does stuff down there in Houston from our sister station. I think
Zerline keeps hinting that they may not take a quarterback at all.
And I think Mike Lombardi is on that too. We had Mike Lombardi on from this, and
Zerline was the first one last year who said Stingley was going to go to the Texans, and he is very plugged in with that team.
Very plugged in with that team.
Number 3 pick, it's Will Anderson, the edge rusher to the Arizona Cardinals. Number 4, C.J. Stroud to the Colts. Number 5, it's Miles Murphy ahead of Tyree Wilson and Jalen Carter, the Clemson edge rusher.
Tell you what,
goes to the Seahawks. He's a good player.
That's interesting. He is a very good player. I think people have some questions, really, though, about him. They were maybe a little bit worried about Clemson guys and how they're going to play in the league and things. But
Cleveland Farrell scared everybody off.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of those. Especially that high. I really do love the kid from Tech, though, myself.
Tyree Wilson is such a good player.
I think he is really good. Matter of fact, he's my 7th best player on my board right now, and Murphy is number 14 on my board. So,
boy, we get some wild action after the first 5 picks. Number 6, the Detroit Lions go ahead and gamble on Jalen Carter, the Georgia defensive tackle. Number 7, the pick, it's the Raiders getting Will Levis, keeping him away from Washington.
If I could circle back, that 6th pick for the Lions, that's the Rams pick, right?
No, it's the Lions.
No, it's
from the Rams.
From the Rams.
Yes.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. So number 8, a guy I know you're not very high on, but the rest of the league seems to be. It's the Falcons taking Lucas Van Ness from Iowa.
Okay, I'm just going to admit this to you guys right now, right here, right now. I have him as my 41st best player on my board. I have a shot to be really wrong about that. This could become my new guy that, hey, Broadus, who were you wrong the most about in your scouting type career? Lucas Van Ness could be that guy. I don't see it like everybody else does. And, maybe I should be with everyone else on this, but I can't be.
Another surprising pick here at number 9, the Chicago Bears select Clemson defensive lineman Brian Brzee. And that's somebody who Dane Brugler has a first-round grade on him, has him as, I believe, his 22nd best player. But, man, again, Tyree Wilson just hanging around until, and this would upset you, number 10 overall, the Eagles go and take Tyree Wilson. That'd be a hell of a pick for them.
That would be a hell of a pick right there. But I feel like, with things with Howie and how, that he's been able to do things, manipulate the draft, get that extra first-round pick. Here you go. Somebody like this falls into your lap, and you have an opportunity to take a real advantage of that.
We go through the next 3 picks. The Titans at 11 take Broderick Jones, tackle from Georgia.
Yeah.
The Texans bounce back with.
I actually have Johnson from Ohio State ahead of Jones from Georgia on my board.
The Texans get Paris Johnson to protect Anthony Richardson with the 12th pick. This one hurts again. Jets, Peter Skoronski.
Oh,
that's a guy. If I could have slid him just past 13, you start getting to 15, 16. That's where I think we start talking about Peter Skoronsky. So he's off the board. So let's do a quick reevaluation as we sit here at pick 14, Brian. Players still left on the board. Christian Gonzalez.
That's very exciting to me, by the way.
Devin Witherspoon, Joey Porter, all the corners
are there. So, I mean, do you let
it ride for a few picks?
I think I'm going to let it ride for 2 picks and see where I'm at. And if one of these guys is sitting there, I have a feeling.
It'd have to be 3 picks because Washington's not going to trade with you at 16.
You don't know that.
I don't think they would. They need a corner themselves. Do you think they would have passed it up to let you come trade up and get it?
I don't know, man.
Let's let it. We'll let it ride for 2 more picks here.
Okay.
We're going to see. At number 14, you have the Patriots selecting Quentin Johnston, receiver from TCU, first receiver off the board. Number 15, it's the Packers selecting Michael Mayer, tight end from Notre Dame. So here we are. Every corner remains, Brian. An unexpected slide for Christian Gonzalez. This is we're at 16. Christian Gonzalez still hasn't gone. This is similar to 16 and CeeDee Lamb hasn't gone.
I think let's see if let's see who the Commanders take.
Okay,
let's see if the Commanders,
and then we'll see about calling the Steelers at 17.
Call the Steelers at 17.
They take Anton Harrison, the offensive tackle. Washington does need to bolster that offensive line. So is this where we're calling the Steelers?
I think we're going to need to get on the phone with the Steelers right now. Okay, well, but let's look behind. Let's look behind, though, the Steelers in the situation, though. Lions, probably not going to take a corner, right?
They just traded Jeff Okudah.
Yeah, but they had off-season, they've signed 2 guys is what they've done.
And then you got Tampa Bay at 19.
Tampa Bay, no. Seattle.
20. Then at 21, you got the Chargers.
Baltimore.
I think if you let this ride, one of those 3 gets to you.
I do too.
Or at the very least, they get closer to like 22 or something.
Let's let it ride.
All right.
Let's see.
How many more picks you want to let this ride for? 3 picks and then reevaluate?
Let's go Pittsburgh, Detroit, Tampa. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Pittsburgh takes Christian Gonzalez. Cornerback, Oregon.
All right. On a lot of people's board, he would be the number 1 guy. So if Pittsburgh was going to take him, there's probably not a chance they were going to let you in on that slot.
Probably not.
Yeah.
The Lions at 18 take potential number 26 overall target Dalton Kincaid, tight end from Utah.
So you've lost both tight ends on this mission.
Have you?
Wait,
is Luke Musgrave?
Oh, I see.
Is Luke Musgrave maybe somebody you like a little bit more?
I see.
Kincaid goes. Then 19. It's Tampa Bay taking Bijan Robinson, running back Texas. So we've lost 3 players there that I think we would have been interested in.
I think there's a lot of people in Dallas Cowboy land that would be super happy. The fake pin throw is if Bijan Robinson goes to Tampa Bay. I think people seriously. It is so split. I don't know with your show. I mean, I listen to you guys every morning, 5:30 to 10. I love listening to you guys talk about the draft. I know on our show we have like Zach Wolchuk's dug in on Bijan Robinson and why you would take him.
Zach would be thrilled with this scenario though, because Jackson Smith and Jigba's still on the board. You've got
that would make him
Witherspoon and Porter are on the board.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna let Seattle make their pick here. We got Chargers, Ravens, Vikings after that. Do we want to stop down after a couple of these guys?
All right, Seattle is a team that's always willing to deal with you. John Snyder is always willing to deal with you.
Is there anybody we want to go up for right now? Or do we just say, hey, the board looks all right now, let's let this ride?
How bad do you want Smith and Jigba?
I would not go up for Smith and Jigba.
Okay,
personally.
would you go up for one of these core? I
might go up for Porter.
I would think about going up for Porter too.
Do you want to let it ride or do you want to call him?
Let's go for a ride.
Okay. All right, we're going to let it ride here. Seattle takes Kalijah Cansey at 20 at 21.
We're in good shape there.
The Chargers take Darnell Washington. There is some growing buzz about Washington going in the first round.
There you go.
At 22, Derek Hall, edge rusher to the Ravens. We're sitting pretty. Somebody's getting to us that we like a lot.
Absolutely.
So we're going to let this one ride, I think. You got the Vikings at pick 24 or at 23. They take Devin Witherspoon, corner, Illinois. So now we have 1 corner left. Jackson Smith and Jigba. Brian Branch is on the board if you like him.
The safety from Alabama.
The corner from Alabama, but yes.
Oh, it's the safety from Alabama. You could play
Nolan Smith is still on the board.
Nolan Smith is absolutely on the board.
Jordan Addison, Jahmyr Gibbs, Emmanuel Forbes, Deonte Banks. A lot of options here for you. Will McDonald, who we know they like. So let's let this ride a little bit more. Why don't we?
Yes.
Next, we got Jacksonville picking at 24. Jacksonville
who
takes.
did Minnesota take, by the way, or Baltimore? Who did Baltimore take, by the way? I'm sorry.
Baltimore took Derek Hall.
Okay, Hall at Baltimore there at 22. Minnesota on the clock, 23 takes.
Devin Witherspoon, cornerback, Illinois.
Lost that one. Okay, you're right about
Jacksonville at 24. We got this run on tight ends now, but it's not Musgrave. It's Sam Laporta.
Whoa.
Stunning first-round pick. That's the Cole Strange pick from the Patriots last year, or like Colton
I think we're
Miller.
sitting great.
We're going to sit here. And so this is the Giants pick at 25, and the Giants come through, and they take John Michael Schmitz, interior offensive lineman. So, Brian, as it stands now, which first-round players do you still have graded left as the Cowboys pick now?
I heard I did not heard Porter was not taken.
Joey Porter is there. Jackson Smith and Jigba, Brian Branch, Cam Smith, DeJuan Jones, Nolan Smith, Jordan Addison, Jahmyr Gibbs, Zay Flowers, Emmanuel Forbes, Deontay Banks. And guys, I will slow this down and tell you who all these people are once we figure out which one of these we want to talk about.
On my board, if you made me, I would Porter is number 9, Addison, USC is number 15. Smith and Jigba is 17.
So that's Jackson Smith and Jigba, receiver from Ohio State, Jordan Addison, receiver from USC, and Joey Porter Jr., the corner from Penn State. I don't even think this is a question. I'm saying, why are we not running the Joey Porter Jr. card up there?
I think you got to take the corner there. Absolutely.
So there we go. We end out taking Joey Porter Jr. is your newest Dallas Cowboy at pick 26. Did not expect him to get down to that spot, Brian. Yeah. And the rest of the draft as it played out, and unless you were curious here, we had right behind you, Osiris Torrance goes to the Buffalo Bills. Cam Smith, the corner from South Carolina, to the Bengals. Will McDonald, the edge rusher from Iowa State, who we've talked about today, goes to the Saints.
Jim Nagy said they were going to be in the first round.
Keely Ringo, the corner from Georgia, Traitsy guy, goes to Philadelphia. And then you close out the first round with DeJuan Jones, the offensive tackle, to the Kansas City Chiefs. We feel good about that, though, I think. We stood pat, and we took Joey Porter Jr.
You're sitting at 26. I know on my board he's the 9th best player.
Nothing to be upset about there
at all. Not at all.
Thank you guys so much for hanging with us today on this live edition of the Love the Star podcast. Thank you to Tim Collins for affording us the space here to talk today to you guys and hang out. Thank you to Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl, Dane Brugler from The Athletic for joining us. Thank you to you guys for listening. Ruben Portillo for running the show today. Carter Freeman for running the video. Thank you guys so much. Coming up next, it's Chris Arnold and Alec Medford to take you the rest of the way.
The latest from the Star in Frisco, as well as inside information from around the league. It's DFW's top football podcast for a reason. Love of the Star with Brian Broaddus and Bobby Bell. Sponsored by Boomer Jacks on the Odyssey app or wherever your favorite podcasts are found.
When interest rates rise, it's not all bad. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, helping you understand why now is the time to purchase an annuity. Annuities are the only products that will guarantee you an income you can't outlive. It's those guarantees that are tied to treasury rates. And as we know, those rates are at 40-year highs. If you're in or within 10 years of retirement, use this to your advantage. This is exactly why it's possible to receive up to a 25%